Bet anywhere with TVG.
And our good friends in the standardbred racing world, a huge day of racing. The Downs at Mohegan Sun Pocono, Super Saturday. The stakes racing schedule on hand features the reigning horse of the year, Wiglet Jiglet. Wiglet Jiglet kind of stealing the marquee from the three-year-olds. A lot of these races you see pointing for the three-year-old colts, fillies, pacers, and trotters. We have a horse who may be the favorite going into the starting gate for the Hamiltonian. And we have on the line right now the voice of the Downs at Mohegan Sun Pocono, Jim Beviglia. Sir, thank you so much for joining us. And
hey, Jim.
How big of a weekend is this for you guys coming up?
Oh, this is one of our biggest of the year. We've had the blessing to host Sunset Saturday for the last several years, and it's kind of the center of the harness racing world. We have some of the biggest stars in the sport coming on Saturday, and 4 stakes races with purses upwards of $2 million.
Before we jump into it, is it always this big? I mean, as somebody who knows a little bit about harness racing, not a lot, it seems like you have all the stars. Is it always this big, or is this year even bigger than what it normally is?
It feels like it's a little bit bigger this year. I mean, the stakes races, the purses are about the same, but for whatever reason, It's just a convergence of things this year where we have some of the biggest names. I mean, always we get the top drivers and trainers bring their best horses, but really this year, I mean, we have the Ben Franklin Pace, which people are talking about as maybe the race of the decade in the sport because of kind of the convergence of horses that are coming together for this thing.
Well, let's keep it right there, because Wiglet Jiglet, reigning horse of the year, clearly the talent and the accomplishment speak for themselves. The other 2 horses that we were reading about, though, Freaky Feet Pete and Always Be Mickey, a couple of horses that it makes it interesting. Both of them have a little bit of speed. They can both sit the trip. They're drawn posts 6 and 7. How do you see the race unfolding from those 2?
Yeah, it's interesting because in the eliminations, Wiglet Jiglet went out and, did his thing. He won in 1:48.1. He's gone faster than that in the past, but it was just kind of a workmanlike effort for him to get to the final. And then Always Be Mickey came out in his split, and he set a world record. He matched the world record for fastest pace ever on a 5/8 oval in 1:47 even. Just an unbelievable mile, and he was parked the entire mile, which means that he went around those turns and essentially went a longer distance than everybody else. And so we thought, oh, well, that's the horse to beat. And then the next elimination came out, and Freaky Feet Pete, he never even popped his earplugs, and he went in 1:47.1, just blistering on the inside. So now you have all these 3 horses coming together. The thing about Wiglet Jiglet is he gets the 3 posts, as you mentioned, so he's got that post position advantage. I think Freaky Feet Pete probably tries to go out to the front end with Wiglet Jiglet, whereas Always Be Mickey a little bit more versatile. He can come from middle of the pack and off the pace.
What about Mel Mara? How bad is that post drawn the inside?
No, it's actually not a bad spot as long as you get out there well. I mean, the danger is if you get off a little bit lethargically, you get maybe 4th in, and there's a big outer flow around you, then you're stymied. But Melmar has the kind of speed that he can get out there quickly and get himself in good positioning. In the race won by Always Be Mickey last week, he was the one battling it out with Always Be Mickey, setting just ridiculous fractions, and he eventually caved. But, if he gets out there and maybe can rate the pace, but that's going to be tough in this race because there is so much speed. It's going to be difficult for anybody to get out there and try to put the field to sleep.
What's crazy about Wiglet Jiglet being the favorite reigning horse of the year, you wouldn't suspect this, but there are 5 horses in the field, including your Mel Mara there, that have actually paced a faster mile than Wiglet Jiglet. Wiglet Jiglet's fastest mile, 1:47.3. Melmar, State Treasure, Always Be Mickey, Freaky Feet Pete, and Always at My Place have all had a mile that raced faster than the reigning horse of the year. That's not something that's very common in this game.
It absolutely isn't. And the thing about Wiglet Jiglet is he's the kind who just does what he has to do. And, sometimes it's not about putting up the showy times for him, but he has beaten a few of these horses. He's beaten Freaky Feet Pete already this year. The other one's a little bit older. He hasn't really competed with. So that's going to be the interesting thing for Wiglet Jiglet. This is one of his real big first tests as a 4-year-old. He's already had a really nice season, but facing this kind of caliber of horse, this kind of speed at all angles, really, it's going to be a real interesting test for this super horse for the sport.
Freaky Feet Pete also was a Breeders' Crown champion for the 3-year-old Pacers last year as well. Moving on to the Earl Beal. Trotters here, the big name coming in was Southwind Frank, and that was a horse that at that moment in time looked like was probably the best horse in this division and looking like the most likely winner of the Hamiltonian down the line. 5-2 on the morning line, but what happened in that elimination, and What about that furious performance from bar hopping?
Yeah, that was an interesting race. You know, it never looked like Southwind Frank was under any duress. He looked like he was trotting along fine, and then he just got out-trotted in the stretch by bar hopping. Now, Yannick Gingras, after the race, he's the driver for Southwind Frank. He said that, you know, his horse wasn't at his best, wasn't anything physical that he thought he'd be ready for this race. So that'll be put to the test here. Bar hopping gets the short straw. He's got that 9 post, and that is definitely the toughest post on the 5/8 oval. So Tim Tetrick, who's a master, he's going to have to do a great job of positioning this horse. The other one to watch in here is the 4 Dason, who won his elimination, and he's got the post position advantage on the other 2 with the 4 post. But Southwind Frank, if he is on top of his game, I mean, that was only the 2nd loss in his career. You think he'll be able to shake that off and come out big for the Earl Beal on Saturday.
But he might have needed that race, right? I mean, he hadn't raced in 21 days. Is that what they're saying? Is that the excuse?
Yeah, that's a possibility. You know, like I said, watching the race, I kept thinking, well, he's not under any duress. He's just going to pull away. And the other possibility is, hey, it's an elimination, and Yannick doesn't want to push him too hard, knowing he's got to come back in a week for the final. So that's a possibility as well. But it was an eye-opener, and I think it probably gives confidence to the rest of the field, whereas coming to the eliminations, everybody was kind of ceding this thing to Southwind Frank.
Well, the Downs at Mohegan Sun Pocono with a monstrous day of racing, and like we said, it's usually about the 3-year-olds, but the older horses have really kind of stolen the marquee with the way that race came together. Jim, thank you so much for joining us, and have fun out there Saturday night.
Thanks, Jim.
Thank you guys for having me. Thanks so much.